Why are women becoming so violent these days? Does anyone know? Seems like there's been a recent uptick in female violence. Eh, mystery, I guess. Yeah, so the shooter in a hockey rink has been identified as trans. Now, this comes just a couple days after the Canadian shooter was also identified as a trans person. Yeah. Yeah, if this pace keeps up, we can no longer assume that the bulge in a trans person's pants is just a penis. Yeah. I'm afraid we're going to have to start patting them down. A little bit. We might have to do it, though. We just had, I'll pull it up here, just a few days ago. So this was the deal. Today it came out that basically the guy who shot up the hockey rink was trans, which is a pattern we've been seeing more and more often here. So we do need to discuss it. This was just a few days ago. The person on the left here was the Canadian shooter that shot up, I think it was a school over in Canada. They came out, or they were identified after the fact as being a trans-identifying individual. This is the person on the right from the ice hockey rink. There was Benny Johnson was talking about this. He has a whole list of these recent shootings that were trans shooters. He says the Tumbler Ridge shooter was transgender. That's, I think, the Canadian one. Annunciation Catholic school shooter identified as trans. Nashville Christian shooter, Lakewood Church shooter, Colorado Springs shooter, Denver shooter, Aberdeen, Iowa school. Charlie Kirk's assassin, Tyler Robinson, he points out, had a trans-identifying boyfriend. Something even about Thomas Crooks with identifying with they, them pronouns. Here's some pictures of the dad right here. You have, this was Brandon Tatum. Sorry. He's talking about how, I guess there were some statements from the family here. His daughter saying that her father was very sick. So people are saying that basically transgenderism is a mental illness, just being transgender, and it leads to things like this. That's kind of the working hypothesis right now online. What do you guys think? Do we have anyone in the chat? You guys can say your opinions, you know.
Shot my family.
Here's my thing. So I feel like it's more of a symptom of an illness than something completely brand new. Although there are aspects of it which I think are kind of brand new. But I feel like the recent trans shooters that I've seen all sort of fit the profile of previous trans shooters that I've seen in the past. I did a little bit of research on Grok because I'm basically asking it, like, what's the profile of previous trans shooters? You know, do they share anything in common with this recent spate of trans-identifying shooters that we're seeing? Because I have this working theory that it's in the past, you used to see school shooters, mass shooters who often identified as like goth, right? It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek theory, but it's all sort of the same type of person. It's somebody who's a social outcast, right? They seem to experience a lot of isolation or just not fit in with normal school life. And there's an outward manifestation of that, at least in the past, where they would dress up like goth, right? You have, who are these guys? The Columbine high school shooters, Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold. They were famously, like, when the pictures were released of them, I don't have those pictures here, from the tragedy, they were dressed almost like goth kids, you know, in these like big boots and trench coats and stuff like that, to where you could clearly see they were an outsider, you know? And here's some pictures of school shooters, mass shooters from sort of, I think this is before 2015 era, right? So they don't all fit the same sort of thing, but a lot of them you can see just look on their face. They're socially awkward. I mean, does this guy does not seem like he's going to fit in well with the normal high school crowd, right? So all sort of the same type. Grok went over some statistics for prior mass shooters. The gender, overwhelmingly male. You know, when we talk about trans shooters, there's a reason why it's never like a female who transitioned into a man that ends up becoming a shooter. I think that happened once actually wasn't that Aubrey Hale maybe? But it's overwhelmingly usually males, right? Because biologically males are more aggressive. They're more likely to do something like that, right? But there's some other things that they point out. Common psychological behavior traits of any shooters, including trans, would be mental health symptoms. Many display prior psychological, behavioral, or developmental issues, especially depression. Suicidal ideation, I think, is a common denominator. So in the old school shootings and the new ones, mass shootings, you see the people generally off themselves right after the event, right? So these are people who are already not happy with life. They're already not happy with themselves. And they sort of plan on taking themselves out already. But just with them, there's something else twisted where they have some type of a feeling that maybe society is the problem. It's not them, right? So their last act before they kill themselves is to take other people out with them, right? Which is what happened in the ice hockey rink thing as well, and the Canadian shooting. They both committed suicide right on the spot, right? There's also some narcissism involved, right? So the people who are shooters tend to be more self-involved, inflated sense of self or self-view, right? I don't know if I have the picture here, but what would you call this behavior? This is the person from the ice hockey rink at his son's graduation, right? Now, I have no problem with trans people, to be honest. I think if you want to you do whatever you want with your body, right? And you can be whoever you're comfortable being as long as it doesn't touch children's decisions, right? I'm always against children transitioning or anything like that. But to me, when I see a photo like this screams that this person is attention seeking, right? And he may have other mental health issues, but to dress like that to your son's graduation is sort of, it's putting the focus on them, right? Whereas even if you're going to come and be obviously openly trans, which is fine, you could wear something a little bit less, attention seeking than that, right? So there's a little bit of narcissism there, I think. Obsession with violence or past attacks, social isolation, relationship stressors, crisis or trauma history, right? So these are some common denominators. Now, I think in the past, you would see kids who were socially isolated and they would maybe dress goth or wear trench coats, and that was the outward manifestation of those symptoms, right? It was a symptom. But I think after the 2020 election, you had this recent rash of people becoming trans who I don't think otherwise would have gone trans. I think the Democrat Party has spent the last 4 to 8 years courting disaffected male youths. And I think there's two parts to it. When you see this recent spate of trans shootings, there are those that feel that there's like a militant trans wing, right? That is, it's like if you have a Democrat Party that's courting disaffected youth, but not only that, that's telling you that you are in danger, you're being discriminated against, you need to fight back, right? And your life is physically actually in danger, right? You're sort of developing an almost like paramilitary wing, right? So you do have this sort of militant strain, which you see in some of these shootings where, let's take the Tyler Robinson shooting, for instance, right? Indications, although nothing's proven yet, that he may have been persuaded to assassinate Charlie Kirk by a group of trans Discord people that obviously felt like Charlie Kirk was a danger to them, right? So there's that militant side of it. And then there's also the I think, mental trauma of it, which I don't think that being trans causes mental trauma. I think it's a symptom in some cases that the person is not happy with themselves. They're not happy with their life. It can be the outward manifestation of that. I'm not saying this applies to all trans people. And I think it's important to kind of delineate between old school trans, let's call them, let's say prior to like 2010, 2015 maybe, which was a much smaller percentage of the population that was transitioning, versus, let's call it radicalized or new wave, we'll say new wave trans, right? These are the people that were encouraged by the Democrat Party, that not only recorded but exalted for being different. So all of a sudden you're a social outsider. You've always felt like an outcast. You're uncomfortable in your body. Maybe you hate yourself, right? You were told that not only were your problems not the problem, but actually society was the problem for you, right? You were doing everything right. You were just born in the wrong body. So you just needed to change yourself, right? And society needed to conform to you and accept you, accept your pronouns, accept your identity, and support that no matter what, right? So I think that there's a group of people that, and it's a small percentage, obviously. Not every trans person is going to wind up being a shooter, obviously, right? But there is a small percentage that I think was just really happy with themselves, shares this same kind of suicidal ideation of previous shooters, and their outlet in current times is not to go goth or to dress like that, is to actually transition, and then they get to be a specialized victimhood group that's exalted by Democrats. And I don't think it's helping that they are told that the world needs to conform to them, that the world's against them. I think that puts in people's minds that they are righteous in fighting back against that. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that the trans causes people to be more violent or to become shooters. I would say that in some cases it's an instance or a symptom of some underlying mental health issues, which have always been consistent throughout history with shooters like that.